feed is what, like 68% average the cost of production of animal, right? Live operation. So it's I look at this way. You have a recipe which the nutritionist design and wants for the animal, and all these feed mills all like the processing here, like the food manufacturing, like a restaurant.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Fit Science Podcast Show. And today I have a very special guest with me, Jose Ramirez from Anitox. And I'm gonna take full advantage of Jose experience to talk about like the global industry. How are you doing, Jose?
Fine, good to see you again, Dr. Wilmer. Good to see you.
It's good to see you, Jose. And Jose, we know each other for a few years, but for those in the audience who don't know you, could you just share with us some of your professional experience?
I have a background in animal science. That's my degree. I had that at the University of Puerto Rico, and then also pursue a master, excuse me, a bachelor, right, in animal science, and I did a master on technology and operations. But that was the University of Phoenix during my work time. But I started my career many years ago. In fact, it was in July of 27. I still recall the day. It was a special day for me. And I started working with Continental Grain. No, they're the holding company of weighing poultry many years ago. And I had the opportunity to work with them, feed milling area, feed manufacturing, also barge unloading. They had a port. They also had a flour mill operation. So I had some flour milling, just a short ready intervention there in that area. But I also had experience working with ADM on the premix and vitamin minerals operation in Puerto Rico, and also in poultry processing operations, liquid egg operations, so and also live operations. So I've been blessed to have the opportunity to work from little chicks up to the end of the product, even further processing, making sausages and breaded products. So that's a good challenge that I had through my career, and now I've been 15 years with Anitox, trying to share my experience with other customers, help them also to improve their milling efficiency, all around.
Commercial mills and integrators often face challenges in managing moisture levels, leading to pellet quality challenges, reduced efficiency and productivity, feed wastage, and nutrient segregation. Proper moisture penetration and retention within feed particles during conditioning and pressing acts as a heat conduit, allowing for uniform heat transfer throughout the meal. This uniform distribution of heat improves starch gelatinization and increases pellet quality and durability. Milling efficiency aids such as MaxiMill facilitate moisture absorption and retention within pellet feeds and help producers mitigate many of these commonly observed pellet appearance deviations. Contact a clean feed expert today to learn more about how MaxiMill supports pellet quality.
That's really important because, as you are saying, you have had the opportunity to work not only in the feed milling but also in the live production, which is extremely important because at the end, the companies need to find a balance between what they do in the feed mill and what they can get, in the field.
I agree. The animals are your customers, right? So at the end, we are trying to do the best for their performance. And then if they have a good performance at the end, the company's going to have a good performance in the processing area, right? And that's why you have the ROI, the money getting inside the operation. You have to feed that animal, to their best performance so they can achieve what, the goals are for the company.
Yeah, yeah. And like I know that you had the opportunity to travel to several countries, in Latin America and in other areas of the world. How do you see, like, the feed demand, globally? Do you think that the feed demand is going to continue increasing?
Yes, no doubt. There's no doubt about it. No, we have right now over what, a billion, 1.2 billion tons of feed manufacturing a year. That's a lot of feed going around, and the population is not stopping; they're still growing, right?
Mhm.
And we have some undeveloped. Oh, let's put it this way: developing countries, right, that are increasing their demand from animal protein. So, and they've been increasing like 1.2, 1.7% in that range annually. So I don't think it's gonna go lower. There's like 28,000 mills around the world. There's a lot of feed mills.
Mhm.
What I do see is some of these mills consolidating, bigger, taking over smaller, and maybe two smaller that were not as efficient being combined to have a larger one, right? Which they could manage their costs better. But going down, I don't think it's going to go down.
Yeah, and like you're talking about, like, feed millings becoming bigger, and what do you think that are the main advantage? Because like I when I was working here in the US in a feed mill, I was thinking that feed mill was always seen as a cost center, and then we didn't want to put a lot of money in the feed mill. But it seems like now that the companies appreciate more that if they put money in the feed mill, then they are gonna save money, because they are gonna be more efficient.
And that's a good point, Wilmer. Feed is what, like 68% average the cost of production of animal, right? Live operation. So it's I look at this way. You have a recipe which the nutritionist design and wants for the animal, and all these feed mills all like the processing here, like the food manufacturing, like a restaurants. They're making that. However, when you combine a couple of mills together and you find a correct position in the geographic area, you could serve several points. But then you have a fixed cost in each area, right?
Mhm.
But when you have it all combined, the fixed cost is going to be diluted with that larger volume. And I think through the years, we have the relationship between the nutritionist and the feed manufacturing side has improved a lot. In the past, it was more like, like I was mentioned, like the gods, right? So the nutritionist will say, "This is the feed formula. You have to do this, Jose. No matter what we give you, you have to do this feed." That's how I was
Yeah.
started my career, right? You have to do this no matter what. Now we have seen there's a better communication. Well, yes, this is the formula, but it's not performing the way you want it. This recipe is not going to come out as you want it. So we're going to be losing money. Yeah, you have the feed formula there, but the animal's going to be what? Throwing out of the plate. They're not going to be eating it. So now it's a better understanding on both sides what it needs for that feed to reach the animal at an adequate form. So
Yeah, and something really important that you're mentioning is, like, I mean, sometimes we could try to save like $2 in the formula, but lose $5, in the feed mill, and also if the feed mill struggle to run a particular formula, then they are not gonna be able to produce,
yeah.
all the feed that they need for a particular week, or for a particular a day.
And I had my struggles, and I started my, and like any other mills, trying to achieve the best type of feed that you want, and pellets breaking or the mash coming out too dusty, or or texturized feed not having the adequate balance between rolled oats or steamed corn.
Mhm.
But at the end, you're trying to achieve the best for the animal. Now you have to remember our customers are the animal, and if they're not eating it, we are just throwing money out to the waste.
And like, because you have had the opportunity to travel, do you see any differences in feed milling practices between, like, let's say, North America and Latin America?
Yes, indeed, between different countries, and even Latin America, you see difference by region also.
Hmm.
And there's several things. You have like people, they look quite easily at labor costs. Well, Jose, you're going to see more people one side versus another, or you might see, well, you have more pressure for like quality of feed because we depend on barges, and they will just come here every 6 or 7 weeks, so we don't have that luxury of wasting our ingredients, or we have this available source of fats and nothing else. That's what we have to use.
Hmm.
So each region has their own challenges. It's kind of interesting, and you have to make a balance. What are your needs? What you have available? Do you really need more throughput to increase your production rate? Do you need to keen on your quality? And even in the same company, right, worldwide, you could see difference between how they operate by region.
Hmm.
So I could see, I work with a different company that, well, they put a lot of pressure, for example, on dye. They want a very good pellet,
Hmm.
and they put like, I'm not lying, like a 2.5, 3 inch dye. That's a thick
Yeah.
dye, a very thick dye, and it will kill your production rate to almost 50%, even lower.
Hmm.
And then you go to the opposite, and the same company, well, they have another operation in maybe North America, and they're pushing for throughput, and maybe it's an inch and a half, and they might think it's too much.
Uh-huh.
So they might think, oh, it's too much, Jose. I can't just change half. I'm going to lose production rate.
Mhm.
So yes, there's uh, you have to adapt to the market. You know what you're looking for. Particle size is a good example, and you know, I see a very small grinding and for a better pellet in many
Yeah.
places. The birds are like what 34, 35 days of age. Others, well, they have 45, 50, 56 days of age. So yes, they want a bigger particle size for the gizzards to work better and have a better, development.
Yeah, and do you see like any differences between like commercial and integrated feed mills? Because that's something that I see in the U.S. more like we got like a more like integrated feed mills, but in Latin America you got like a combination of the same feed mill produce some for the integration and something for the commercial.
Yes.
Do you see any differences there, like in the needs for pellet quality or particle size?
Well, usually if you came from a commercial mill background, like no, I came from a commercial mill, and then we merged with a poultry operation in one of the places. You see a difference in switch
Mhm.
on priorities of let's put it this way, some quality. So
Yeah.
we were more like in through the throughput for the integrated section, but for the commercial, we were putting more pressure on the quality of the feed.
Hmm.
Because the customer, they're paying for X amount of pellet. They want to see pellet. They don't want to see dust. The birds, at that time, we were working with a poultry company. They're a little bit more flexible, let's put it that way. So, and then the formula were very different. They were very different. Very high fat concentration, very hard to make a good pellets. And in Latin America, you see a lot of companies that they manufacture feed for themselves, right? So they're semi-integrated, but they also sell. And I did the same thing because there's an opportunity. I see this as an opportunity. Some operations they like it, some people they don't like. But female is a cost center, right?
Hmm.
And integrate. There's no doubt about it. But if you improve your efficiency, and you gain 10% space, 15% space, and you're not interested in increasing your operation, in terms of more broilers or more swine, then you have another opportunity. You say, well, I could save the energy, save some money, not run the fifth day or the sixth day, or maybe I have a capacity here which I could take advantage and make feed to sell to a third party. So I kind of focused on that side. I was interested in that side, and we started making some other feed for other toll milling purpose, and we were making money like
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
So that income was helping us kind of blend our costs in an integrated side. And I see it as an opportunity. People should say, look, if you have extra capacity, take advantage of it.
That's true because like you are gonna, as you were discussing at the beginning of the conversation, the feed mill is gonna have a lot of fixed costs, right? Labor might be like a fixed cost, like the depreciation of the equipment is gonna go a
Equipment,
fixed cost. So,
that's correct.
just finding those other sources of income can help you out to reduce that feed cost per ton of feed produced.
One thing that I did in some of the mills is that once I gained capacity, if there was not a priority on putting more animals in the field, then I calculated the margin that we could obtain for that extra capacity of product that we could sell toll mill. And with that budget, it used to help me to allocate some money for projects,
Hmm.
for improvement projects. So I took, for example, if I gain something like a 30, 50, and then in some much, $40,000 additional per year, 100,000, I'll take that money. It wasn't taken from me. It was taken and put back in the mill, maintenance, for improved performance, for whatever my needs were. So it was an income that we used in order to stay and lower our maintenance costs.
And like something that I will also just pick your brain is how feed mills find their opportunities or their bottlenecks. And I when you were talking about Latin America, I have seen some feed mills that their bottleneck is like, oh, I don't have enough trucks, so they just are full with the finished feed beans. Everything is full, so they need to stop. They don't have trucks. So how do feed mills find their bottlenecks to improve their efficiencies?
That's a very good question. That's a very ample question because your bottleneck can start just from the beginning, from the receiving area.
Hmm.
You might not have the capacity to unload as quick as possible for your corn and soy. Sometimes we forget about that. We just think, oh yeah, X amount, but sometimes we don't have the speed enough to keep our future demands of need just in the receiving area. So we have to put another receiving leg, or increase the speed, or change the size. Then we could jump then to the what? The grinding capacity, which in a lot of mills I visit, it's interesting. A lot of mills that I visit in the past just had one hammer mill, for example. Then you have a breakdown and you're lost. You lost there. You couldn't grind anything at all, or you couldn't do coarse grinding and fine grinding. You couldn't do that blend there. So that was the main one I saw in Latin America when I started, even in US and auto operation. Now, most of them, they have two, or they have a roller mill and a hammer mill combination, or two hammer mills, but they have two units at least.
Mhm.
And then when you look at the mixer side, what I've seen more the trend is like, hey, the mixer usually is not your bottleneck in some places is how fast can you weigh all your ingredients, the weighing, the
Yeah.
scales,
Mhm.
to have them all ready that as soon as you dump your mixer and it close, boom, you have the next batch going on. And they're not just waiting until the scale gets filled up. But new technology using, like, for example, AC drive, programming, PLCs has speed up that. You could make it more, ramp it up more faster. Then you look at the mixer, okay, mixer speed, you validate that with CVs, you look, how quick it is, and you jump to the pelleting side. Now, the pelleting, traditionally, we started with mash feed. Almost all the countries started with mash feed.
Mhm.
And there's been some countries that in the last 3 or 4 years have been ramping up their pelleting production. It was basically just mash feed, right? So they're starting new with a pellet mill. They're learning about that. They're being conservative on the design of the mill. And then they find out, well, it's not really what I needed. I needed a bigger machine.
Mhm.
Because they were concerned about it's a capital expense. It's a very strong capital investment you have to do there. So then you find out, well, this pelleting line will be enough. I have to put a second one. Or like, and I work at one of the mills that the structure was not designed for expansion. It was a very old mill. So there was not, it was a very tight, teeny little place. There wasn't much space to put another line there. So we had to struggle and putting a new line there. It was all concrete built, but all these enclosure.
Mhm.
And with the new future, new mills that are being built right now, they take into account, hey, you have one line and they have a space for a second, maybe a third line already.
Mhm.
So that's some things that I've seen most common. And you mentioned about trucks. Eh, I had opportunity to work in one mill in Brazil. We did some work there, and this is interesting. They had one mixer, a 10-ton mixer, which was a challenge because they were just running like seven and a half capacity because at 10-ton it was a big torque pressure, and they had a breakdown and they lost operations. So they're running at 7.5, and their storage space for finished feed was just like for 6 hours.
Mhm.
It was a large, big poultry operation. They had 45 feed trucks
Yeah.
and 50 ingredient trucks. And I knew that fact because I went in at night and I started counting each one of them. One, two, three, four. All the line of the feed trucks and all the line of the ingredient trucks. That's the only way they were managing. So I was, why they don't put more investment on the storage? Well, the answer was for them. Storing feed is now our business. Having the feed delivered to the chickens, that's our business. So they were more keen to invest more on trucks than in storage space. I think it's a risk. I think at least you need like a day, maybe 2 days of buffer, but it depends on which country, how you view your business.
And also because like let's say something break down, right? You only have like a 6 hours of storage capacity, so you're is risky, yeah. But
It's very risky.
typically what I tell my students, because I'm teaching the feed manufacturing class and I was just teaching feed delivery, I was advising at least 1 day and a half to 2 days of production capacity. So if a feed mill has 2,400 tons per day, then have like a storage capacity of 2,600 tons. But like that's gonna vary it. And the other thing that I was gonna tell you too, Jose, is that like you when you were talking about like the pellet mill, right? uh Sometimes the companies realize, okay, it's no, I cannot get like all the capacity from the pellet mill, but they need to check when they buy the pellet mill, how many tons based on a specific LD ratio in the pellet die, because maybe what
That's
they
correct.
get is like, okay, 30 tons per hour with a LD of 12, but now they have an LD of 18, it's not going to get like the same throughput. So I think those are very important considerations that the companies need to take in account.
In fact, I think that's the number one factor you just mentioned in terms of pelleting capacity, because they'll look at the horsepower, right? They use that as a reference. If I have a 300 horsepower, Jose, we're thinking about 30 tons, just in average.
Mhm,
A 400 horsepower motor, like 40 tons. Yes, I'm very conservative. I like to use the 80%, no, the normal curve of distribution.
mhm,
So if they give me like 300, I say, well, I'm not going to get 30. I'm gonna target for 28, for example, 27. If we get that, at least then I could do the tweaking.
mhm.
But if you think you're gonna get it, because you have to leave space, like you just mentioned, right? That's the correct thing. They're designed 30 ton, but what 9-10 ratio,
Mhm.
compression ratio. You're talking about what 18, 20. I saw one 21. If they're making shrimp feed, for example,
Yeah.
or aqua feed, no, they want it very tough. It's gonna drop it down to 50% right away,
Mhm.
right? So that they forget about that question. Maybe they don't recall to answer, no, to make that question at that time, or they're not looking exactly what their needs are. And you have to be very careful. What's your market? Going back to the word, what is your market? What is the animal? What's your target? What are you looking for?
Yeah, well, and like sometimes might be also, Jose, because they have been only doing like mash feed, and then they don't have experience with pelleting. So it's always good to ask someone, right? Maybe like somebody who has experience with pelleting. That way, they can ask the right answer when they are designing, the pelleting lines.
I recall many when we talk about mash and pellet. I get that a lot question when I travel. A company that they're not pelleting at that moment. They're looking future to do that, and they always come and say, "Well, pellet is much better, Jose, than mash." In general sense, pellets provide a better performance for the animal compared to mash under, I always say, under the same feed formula, right? Same condition. However, the same amount of money that you have to invest in the pelleting is the same amount of money you have available to make changes on your nutritional side. So sometimes, in some occasion, and some animal, you could play a little bit with your amino acid, your energy level, well, other things there, right? And get some improvement performance and still be cheaper than pelleting. So I tell them, it's yeah, you want to pellet because what? Well, it's better for that. Well, are you sure? Remember, it's nothing comes free.
Mhm,
So they forget about the energy cost. They look at the equipment. It just cost me, $1 million or even more to put a pelleting line. They're expensive.
mhm,
And then they said, well, so I forgot about the energy. Well, my transformer, they don't handle that capacity. So I have to double my energy intake. Sure.
mhm,
Almost 50% or 45, no, minimum 45, maybe 50% just energy costs ramped up right away. And then, oh, I forgot I need a boiler.
mhm.
Now I have to pay for maintenance on the boiler. Now I have to check the steam. Now all these valves. Yeah, that's the price.
And also, Jose, like another challenge is like sometimes they need to get a loan for that investment, right? So they need to pay interest on the loan too. So depending what is the interest rate, and I think you're bringing like a really good point, and everybody should consider, all this into account.
Yeah, it is like that. So I'm very careful, like saying, just buy a pelleting line. No, what's your market? What's your target? What are you looking for? Is there a way you can improve part of that performance of the animal without having to do that? Or you just are doing this because your neighbor started pelleting? I hear that a lot. Well, he started pelleting. I have to compete, so I'm going to put pellets also. Well, really? What are you looking for?
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
I like, I get that question all the time.
And Jose, what other differences do you see, like, between like US and Latin America, particularly like managing the pelleting system? Because like in the US, I see more like the focus is production rate, and we got feed mills that can make like 25,000 tons. But what differences have you seen, like maybe like in the conditioning process or in the cooling process?
You mentioned about the throughput one. That's a big difference. So yeah, right from the start, if you're having mills that are more focused on making more production, everything else could be just designed for that.
Mhm.
And in America, most of them, because they don't have ready accessible raw material.
Yeah.
I think they have struggled. They have learned to manage each quantity of that material and make the best they can with it.
Mhm.
So that's one advantage. I think we or they depend on trucks, or they depend on another country from US or from Brazil or Argentina to give them what they need. So they manage that a little bit better. In fact, even in shrink, they manage it better than even US. That's what I've seen in general. Hopefully nobody criticizes me for that, but in general, that's what I've seen. And then if you look at how they condition, they put a lot of efforts in conditioning. They really are looking at longer retention time. They're looking very closely at particle size down there. They're really looking PDI, on hardness, which are two different things for me. PDI is one thing and hardness another one. And they're looking also on the length of the pellet size. They're very critical on that. And in fact, I've seen companies that have 95, 96, 97% PDI, not a fictitious PDI, a real good PDI.
Yeah.
Because we could do a PDI whatever we want. And I get that question all the time. Well, Jose, I have an 89 PDI, and this company has 94 of PDI. They're better than those. And I said, are you sure? Yeah, their PDI is 94. I said, how are they measuring their PDI? We don't know. So just because they have a number of 94 and you have 89 doesn't mean that they're better than you are. Because you don't know the method that they're measuring with. You don't know exactly what ingredients they're handling, right? So PDI is a durability thing, right? How you can handle stress, abrasion, all that stuff. So if it's a 10 Kansas State tumbler, very common, 10 minutes, 14 minutes, 15 minutes with bolts or not bolts. So I tell the guy, don't compare each other unless you really are looking not there at the farm level. Because I could have a 90 PDI in my side in the mill, and the chickens, what they're eating is really, they're eating pellets. They're not eating PDI. So you look at a percent of pellets in the plate. And if you're only having 30% of pellets, you're not being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
So you have a 90% PDI on your side, but your birds will only have like a 30% pellet in the plate. So it's kind of out to cheating yourself.
Yeah.
And there's something that's happening. But maybe the mill is making it good. They put a lot of effort in the mill. What I've seen is they're going a little bit further, that looking what's happening to our pellets in the truck. Can we control the speed? And I did work on that in one of my companies. We control the speed of discharge because they were doing it so fast that they were breaking our pellets too much. We just had like a 5%, 5 to 7% increase just on the discharge because it was going so fast and breaking it. So we put our regulators on the hydraulics, right, just to make it a little bit more slower and not wrapping up. Then we look at the farm level, what's happening, and all these screws in the farm, are they good condition or not? Too fast, too slow? Just ask question, what's happening with the pellets in the farm level? Because maybe we're doing a good job, but in between, something is happening that's breaking and causing more issue. And America has seen a lot of pressure, putting a lot of emphasis in that area.
Yeah, and also, like even like at the farm level, when they are checking, in the feeders inside the houses, it's very important to collect as many samples as they can because there is going to be always a natural segregation in the bin.
Yeah.
And one, as Tom from Tom Winnow Whiskey mentioned, they need to collect multiple samples to really know what are the birds getting to account for that segregation. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of work in research, in Moritz, for example, has done Boney. I think he also worked with that with particle segregation, and you see how some nutrients might change, right? And especially if it's like a spray thing, like enzyme spray or anything that's going outside the pellet, or that abrasion is going to be falling out. So you're going to see some segregation. It's not going to be a uniform nutrition, let's put it that way, for the birds.
Yeah, and also because like let's say, especially if they are applying some enzymes post pellet, right? And if the pellet quality is not good, then the fines are gonna get the majority of the liquid just because they have a higher surface area. And then we need to think that the houses we have migration fences, right? So if the birds can only get like the feed that gets into this segment of the house, and is there any segregation, then there are going to be some issues with uniformity. Yeah, that's very important.
Which is key in for those companies that first in the breeder phase that you're developing, you want to, and for layers, you want to uniform, pullets. That's very important for egg size and quality, right? And also in the meat, in the broiler side, you're looking at, for example, at further processing. We have some contract with one company. We have contract with KFC and other companies. they have a specific range of bird size, right? That you need to process for them. So the more uniform the farm is, the better it is for the yield of the processing at the plant. But if it's not uniform, then you have to make adjustment in the processing side, inside the meat in the slaughterhouse, and then if your target was X amount of boxes of birds per day, and you said, well, I could hit it with one farm, now I need maybe a farm and a half, or farm one quarter, because I don't get that size range that I was looking for. So, and I we did a lot of work with that at one of the operations, on trying to improve that size of bird that was going for KFC, for example, right? Or church fried chicken. And the other one was for, no, that was for eggs. Wendy's, that was for eggs. But we managed that. We had to manage that. Even it gets stronger if you have males and females. If you're not segregating, you're not doing sexing,
Yeah.
it's more challenging then because you have a natural selection just by sizes. So it was interesting, how to balance that thing and get the number that you wanted.
Yeah, and something that I typically see in other countries is like what they don't they will have to just they cannot remove all the birds at the same time, right? They just start getting the bigger birds and then they just leave the smaller ones for like one or 2 days extra. Yeah,
Yeah, which is tough. I think it's kind of tough. It put a lot of stress on those birds inside the farms and they're running around. And I try to avoid that practice.
yeah,
I try to avoid it. It's yeah. I don't think it's not the best interest for the birds.
it's true, and it probably creates like a lot of flapping, and then can create some issues with meat quality of the birds. Yeah,
Yeah, wing quality breasts. You have to lift the feeders, the water, because you need to move people inside sometimes. So
yeah.
you're getting feed back and forth to the animal, start picking other things in the litter. So it's not the best scenario, but you have to live with that.
And Jose, I'm gonna, like take advantage of your experience not only in the US but also in Latin America. What can we learn from each other? What do you think? Because like I have the feeling like all the females are doing um, the best thing that they can, but then there are always opportunities to improve. I don't think that you and I have been in a feed mill where everything is perfect. So what can we learn from each other?
One thing that, in general, I learned in U.S. versus Latin is the pressure, the detail they put on trying to maximize their resources because it's limited.
Mhm.
So they really put a lot of effort in trying to manage their inventory, their quality of the feed. They put a lot of things, and sometimes we lose sight. I've seen a company that, well, I just need to achieve this for, I just want this PDI for this reason, or I just want this, no matter what, and they forget, hey, you have to pay that.
Mhm.
It's costing you money. And I think in US we're a little bit more effective in trying to play with the numbers, right? In terms of how to manage that economic uh, break, how you call it, the point, I call it breaking point,
Mhm.
because you get to a point that, well, it's going to cost you too much to be too good, or maybe too your throughput is getting too high and it's affecting you. So you have to find the sweet spot. What is your best target? You want an 80% pellet and this amount of throughput, and what we can learn going back again, how we manage scheduling. For example, US are very good on managing scheduling, managing flocks. It's a different market. If you look at poultry, like most of them is US grower contract growers, right? The contract growers.
Yeah.
In Latin America, you have a lot of company owned.
Mhm.
So they have the opportunity to play around with some trials and other things in their own because they control those farms. And US is not so easy.
Mhm.
So not because it's bad, it's just because that's the business model that works for them. It doesn't work as good for them maybe in other parts of the world. And Brazil is getting more now to contract growers. They have more data than in the past. But going back, what we can learn from each other is that in my case, I learn every time I go for a mill, I learn something else. I've seen very, very small mills,
Mhm.
very small, being super efficient. That sometimes I say, these guys, they run like a clock. They know what they're handling. They manage a quite amount of feed. They're going that throughput is very nice. Their quality is top notch. And then I try to look at how they're managing. Then I found, well, they're not achieving this type of blend. Then I work with them, or they're not achieving this, or they're having issues at the farm level. So I think the thing is not just looking at our mill. If we gain experience traveling to another place, another company in US, another company, even not America or Europe, Asia, I'll tell you, you're going to learn a lot. Just because the market target is different in terms of bird size, so you're going to know why they're doing it that for, why they're doing fat coat, why they're not coating on fat, why they're putting oils at the mixer, why they're putting 3% of fat in the mixer, which is going to kill you. But I've seen that 4% of fat in the mixer. Boom. Well, they don't have the luxury of having an equipment, or maybe that's the way they want to run. So, and if we look in other places, I think if company need to invest, sometimes we don't invest enough in our people, right? That's one of the biggest factors I look at in training them and showing them that femaling is not. They used to call it like a science, art, right? Politics is an art. Everybody was an art. I think we just we call it art because we couldn't understand what was happening, right? Now when they were learning, now we say, hey, there's a science on that. It's not just art. There's a reason for that. And something that we forget about. We talk about everything and we forget about the human
Hmm.
that's there, that's been told that you have to make good feed no matter what, right? And that he has to run 180 degrees Fahrenheit no matter what, even though he can't achieve that. And he have to use X amount of steam no matter what. And I think what we can learn from each other is going back again is go to basic, go back to basic, like
Hmm.
try to understand what we are doing and how we could improve it. But we need to understand the science of it.
I really like, what you're saying about like training the people, because they are the ones that are there like 24 hours a day. If you got like two shifts, 12 hours, or three shifts, 8 hours. And there is a lot of, money moving through a feed mill. And if you got like a really trained workforce, then you are just going to have like a very efficient, production system.
I'll tell you one thing, it's tough to be at 2:30 in the morning, 3:30 in the morning, running a mill, where there's dust, noise, pellet mill, all this noise going in the back.
Hmm.
And at the same time, you got a plug up there, and then your bin alarm is sounding at the same time, and you're running back and forth because then your fat plug there.
Yeah.
I've been through that stuff, right? My best school was that when I started with Conrad Reagan, and I have to be thankful of that for them. They put me 3 months on a training, right? Doesn't matter where I came from, all my nutrition, blah blah blah. I had to start doing the same work that everybody did at the mill. Every 2 weeks, I was doing that role by myself. So maybe 1 or 2 days they were with me, give me the basic. After that, I do it myself. Pellet mill, batching, premixing, warehousing, forklifting, going to the barge, unloading, receiving. But then you understood the struggles that they were going through.
Hmm.
Then you understood why they were having some issues. And then you can understand better, what it takes to make a good feed. No, no. But and you learn from them. Maybe they didn't know the science, but they knew how to achieve that.
That's true.
I had an excellent operator. He was the top notch for quality. He didn't know the science, but he was really a master on terms of pellet quality. He was a top notch, and I watched him closely how he adjusts the gap of the rolls,
Hmm.
how he adjusted the speed, the temperature, and how he adjusted the steam pressure.
Yeah.
And I was watching closely, taking my little notes. He didn't know why, but he said it runs better, Jose. It runs better. That's all. It runs better. Oh, look, it doesn't skip here. Look, there's no moisture. But the gelatinization going there and the condition, he didn't understand. But he knew how to run better than anybody else.
You just remind me, my old days when I was working in a feed mill in North Carolina. I was working from 6 a.m., no, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And the interesting thing about working in the feed mill is that every day is different, right? Sometimes
Yep.
everything runs really smooth, but then there are other nights like you are describing that you you just got so much going on in the feed mill. But
Yeah.
something that you are mentioning that I think like companies should take advantage. It's like the internal knowledge of the operator, right? You are describing like a really good operator. How can we, make sure that if that's the best operator, how can that operator train the new one? That is just learning how to run the equipment. That's a good opportunity too there.
I think if we recognize the human factor on them, they could be a better teacher for new incomers, right?
Hmm.
And sometimes what we do is we penalize, right, the good person. Oh, he's good at doing this, so we got to give him the hard feeds. And then the easier feed, we're getting to somebody that doesn't know really how to run it because he doesn't know. Well, that's not life. We should be a little bit more fair.
Hmm.
If he's good, well, just give him an opportunity also, to go with the good ones also. And just take advantage of in that learning process and recognize his skills. And I mentioned this because it's getting a little bit tougher through the years to get people, at least in the U.S., involved with female in terms of operators. Right?
Hmm.
We have new ag being, university, ag school. They're coming now. They're getting involved. But if you ask me, for example, if you're like, I'm just taking something like, oh, I'm going to be a app developer and do something here. No, I'm going to go work in a female like you mentioned, in the third shift night, getting dusty. Well, is that really what I want to do with my life?
Hmm.
So we really have to train, invest in those people. They'll make a difference for you, and give the opportunity. I was given the opportunity with Kansas State to the feed manufacturing short course.
Hmm.
I went there in '92, many years ago, right? And I won the outstanding student award, right?
Hmm.
So I was happy because I really went there because I wanted to learn. Really, I wanted to learn. And the same thing, North Carolina had a nutrition conference and female, and you have also a workshop that you provide on a yearly basis. Also, they're excellent tools. And Nashville also they have one, the use of poultry and egg,
Yeah.
and they all have different things. It's not that I took this one and forget about it. I'm a master. No, no, you're gonna learn every year from somebody, and you'll see something that they're doing a tweaking. You say, "Well, I never thought about that." Yeah, it happens like that. So
Like for me, when I was with Smithfield, um, I came for the manager trainee program. I didn't speak any English when I came, but in July, the same day that I arrived, I learned about like feed milling class that was taught at NC State by Dr. Peter Ferket. And then I took that class, and it allowed me to integrate all the information that I was seeing in the feed mill with the class, information. And that's really, it's extremely helpful, Jose.
it is. It is. I come from the time of Keith Benke. So he's one of my mentor. Let's put it that way. Bob McInhelly, Paul, when the Gusta started doing the CV test
Hmm.
and develop a standard for that.
Hmm.
So it was like a breakthrough moment in terms of how to improve. Look at your female, and it's just not blending and mixing. It's doing a good recipe, doing a good formula. And from that day, on, you could see numerous researchers. Yourself, Charles Stark. Also, he was doing his master degree when I was in K State doing that short course, and I had a chance to meet him there also. So it was good. It was very good.
Yeah.
And also, I met with Wem. Recall Wem was in the market only like 3 or 4 years. So we started talking about PLC automation. We did some interesting work in automation with another company from Kansas and one of the mills that I work with. And we even automated our drug system, right? Medicated system.
Hmm.
It was the first one that was developed in US for that. And even the FDA inspectors that went down there to our facility and they said, well, Jose, we just need to prove the following, that what you're weighing here of Coxiostat, whatever medication, BMD, whatever you're using, is going to the mixer. That's all. And we were using a Venturi system, right, with airs.
Hmm.
So it was easy. We put like a filter sock at the end.
Hmm.
It had like a double balancing. It had a net weight here, like 3 pounds off. Another scale kind of verify that. It will dump to a Venturi to the mixer. So we put a filter sock at the end. We wait it empty and then went full. Bingo, we got it there.
Hmm.
We did it 3 times, and FDA said, forget about Jose. We never seen this.
Yeah.
And that came from an idea just talking with people in a short course.
Hmm.
People all talking, interacting ideas, and Bob McInheley, Robert McInheley, professor, he was still alive at that time, and he mentioned something that didn't work for him, and I said, no, it's gonna work. It's just this. I think you missed this, and we did it. Bingo, we got it.
That's the nice thing about, like, exchanging experiences and knowledge. And well, we're getting to the end of this conversation, Jose, and maybe you already provide some advice or resources that the feed milling, personnel can use. What other resources are available that you think that they should choose or use to improve their knowledge and then the overall feed milling operations?
Well, one thing we have to recognize is this Wysenix
Hmm.
workshop that you're doing right now, and they talk about feed milling, poultry nutrition, swine. It opens a new dimension for other people that want to learn about feed milling. They're not maybe directly involved, but it also opened the door for those guys that are working there, and maybe and they could just look there, check their LinkedIn or check it and YouTube or something like that, and just connect and learn a little bit from their home. So even if they don't have maybe the resources to move to other places or to go to a school, it opens a window for them.
Hmm.
It's good. No, they learn the basic, but I still feel myself that hands to hand face,
Yeah.
being with a colleague, because when you go to a conference, I use this as an example. When you go to a conference and somebody's just a speaker, you have maybe, hey, somebody want to ask for or identify an issue or want an advice. They get very timid. People won't,
Hmm.
but they don't want to raise their hand.
Hmm.
They might go to the back of the room and ask you a question, right? But when you have a smaller group and they interact each together, and they're not competitors, yeah, I'm from US and you're from Thailand or I'm somewhere else. You start making sort of questions, and learning from them. Why you do that? Well, we learned this. Well, we learned that this amount of particle size is good for floating aquaculture feed. Oh, interesting on that. I didn't work with that one. I just work with shrimp. I never worked with floating fish. How you work with that?
Hmm.
And so you start learning something else that you don't do. It might be which maybe you could adapt to your mill.
Hmm.
And I learned from the pet food industry,
Yeah.
and I work with some pet food company. But I just learned just by hearing a person in a conference. He made like a very small comment. I couldn't hear the complete, but I saw a smile on his face, and I said, he knows something that I don't know."
Hmm.
So we got together, we started talking, and he was working with water activity.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was just learning about it. I didn't understand the concept until he explained to me, and I said, "Okay, this is very important." Then, well, I'm talking many, many years ago. And then he said, he knows what he's doing. So I need to learn from this guy. So what? We went to dinner together. We exchanged idea, and he was one of my mentors in water activity.
It provides, like a starting point. I mean, it probably, like we were discussing, all the facilities are different, but it allows you, like, okay, this is what they are doing. You start from there and then tweak it a little bit so it works in your facility too.
And going back to your students that are studying nutrition, for example, or feed milling, if you have the opportunity to work, I call it a summer, what they call it, a summer training, a summer camp, or a semester of practice. So like I did it once, but it was a farm, a dairy farm. It was a requirement for us at that time, but it gives you hand on hands experience, right? And I think it makes a difference when you have to, if that's really what you want. No, if you really want to work with Aunt Mill, you really want to work with nutrition, or you really, that's, it'll let you know right away if you're suited for that or not.
And come back to what we were discussing at the end, right? If we got the nutritionists that understand what's going on in the feed mill, then in years to come, that communication is going to get even better.
Yes, it's gonna get, and it makes a big difference. Uh, I, I agree. And it has changed, improved a lot.
Hmm.
The communication between the feed milling operation and nutrition is key. It's very key, very important. It's not just I give you this formula, Jose, run it. It's not going to run for this reason. It's going to be a low quality. There have to be a balance on the cost, on the feed formula, which is almost like least cost most of the time, 90% more of the time, and then also what the input is from the farm side.
Yeah.
Most of the female guys, they only hear, well, we have issue with the birds. It's your fault. Nutrition side. It's the female side.
Hmm.
So it's very common to hear the struggle between female and performance, and always blaming each other, right? So it's very common. It has improved a lot, but you still once in a while hear that we're having issue with the feed. Then they feed say, well, that's the formula, and then the formula come back. No, you have to do that. So they all have to be aligned together. And I respect female operation guys because it's hard. It is hard in the environment. It's hard to make feed. It's hard to sacrifice sometimes your family. If it's a holiday, and you have to feed the animals, and you have to break.
Yeah.
And I've been through that also. If it's New Year, if it's Christmas night,
Yeah.
you still have to be there to make that feed, to deliver that, because those animals are important. No, they're gonna die. Or you had a hurricane, right, which broke the facility, and you had to put a transformer on and run again and send those trucks just to feed the birds, because they don't have feed at all. It's been like 1 day, maybe 2 days, and there's no too much water. You have to cross that place, so it's a struggle. Yeah.
Well, I have really enjoyed this conversation, Jose. Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to continue collaborating with you.
Sure. Well, I really appreciate. No, thanks for also for your friendship.
Thank you.